everybody. Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of chatting with bassist for the band Hawktail, Paul Kowert.
Hi, Raul.
How you doing, man?
I'm
So
doing good.
I see you're enjoying a lovely sunny day outside in the fall, and you have multiple flying insects behind you. Hopefully none of them will be more interested in you than the flowers. But
Yeah.
as we like to always kind of take a journey in the past to kind of get to know you a little better, how did you get started in music and on bass?
Well, I'm from a musical family. I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. I grew up playing in the church, and I started on violin. And I switched to bass when I was 9 because there was a strings program at my elementary school, and I wanted to start a new instrument with everybody else. I just ended up liking the bass a lot because it was a more social experience for me. As soon as I started playing bass, I started playing with guitar players and had a little rock band and had a jazz combo. And so that was more fun for me at that time than practicing violin sonatas like in a room by myself. Who knows what other reasons. I mean, I ended up sticking primarily with the bass, but I also would pick up the fiddle every now and again after that, and started playing the mandolin when I was 15 because I got interested in bluegrass music. And a bluegrass band came to my high school. At that point, I was really a classical musician. I was classically trained and playing in orchestras and doing concerto competitions and stuff like that. But as a bass player, because I was a bass player, I was playing with a lot of different things on the side of that, from like a high school jazz band to a jazz combo and my rock band. But I went to Curtis Institute of Music to study bass performance with Hal Robinson and Edgar Meyer, who is a hero to me and whose records I had scoured before I got to meet him in my audition. Spent 4 years there, and I joined Punch Brothers in my last year of college and moved to New York City and been playing with them ever since, and also always had another band on the side, which has kind of become occupying much more of my time as the Punch Brothers tour schedule has decreased. And even though we keep on putting records out on a regular basis, the other projects I've had where I do more of the composing myself and stuff like that have taken more of my time. So that's the whole general trajectory.
There you go. Now, how did Hawktail come about?
Well, I've been playing with Jordan Tice since about 2007, and at first we had a group called the Jordan Tice Trio, and that had a hammer dulcimer player in it, Simon Chrisman. Then he had to get busy with another band, and we kind of paused for a while, and then Brittany Haas joined us, who's the fiddler in Hawktail, and so then it was Jordan and Brittany and I. We called ourselves Haas Kowert Tice. And we made one record in 2014 and felt like the way we were writing and playing, we wanted one more voice in the band, one more instrument, somebody who could be a plectrum buddy with our guitar player. Mm-hmm. So the instrumentation went from bass, guitar, fiddle, and then we added Dominic Leslie on mandolin. So then there's 2 plectrum and 2 bows, with me on the bass playing with the bow and Brittany on violin.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And it's interesting as far as genre goes. And whenever I have this conversation with musicians, the lines get a little blurred because as we evolve in the music, so you guys fall kind of within a folk music niche, if you will. But I get elements of bluegrass. I get elements of old-timey music. Where does this land?
Well, I guess it depends on who's asking. I mean, that's a question for consumers, right? And for where do you put the record at the CD store?
Sure.
And stuff like that. I mean, the story, which would have more truth behind it, is that we all met at fiddle camp and at festivals that booked acts. Like, actually, I met Jordan at a very short-lived festival. It had 1 year. It's called String Nation. It was in Camden, New Jersey.
Wow.
The lineup was insane. It was like Psycho Grass and Daryl Anger and Mike Marshall, the duo, and the Swedish instrumental trio Vesson, which is one of my all-time favorite bands. Hamilton de Holanda was there. It was stacked, and it was an amazing experience. And a bunch of young people were there and met after hours. Mm-hmm. And here's one of those wasps. Yeah. It's all right. So We have this shared background of the records that were so influential on people who play our instruments, and records like Bela Fleck's record Drive, or the Bluegrass Sessions, or Edgar Meyer's records, and bluegrass and old time music. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean that's kind of the shared background, but and specifically, yeah, music by like Wesson and Bela and Edgar. Those were big for us. When we first met, we would have surely played a tune by Wesson, or 3 or 4, just for fun.
Gotcha.
So, that's a Swedish instrumental trio, but we're, so it's hard to say.
Sure.
Fiddle music, maybe.
Gotcha. Well, and I find that, again, the definitions only fit loosely, because especially like when you talk to rock people, whether they are in classic rock or prog rock or metal or death metal or however they want to call it, I think it's more just kind of in that identification mode. And I think people do the same thing with food. Like you eat something, you go, oh, this tastes like this. Oh, it tastes like chicken. So
yeah,
that way you kind of go, okay, I know kind of what I'm listening to, or I know what I'm dealing with here, kind of what my expectations are. But with folk music, it's always, I think, kind of a part of our rich musical heritage. And listening, specifically when I was listening to Four Tunes, I got kind of elements of like almost sea shanty kind of things as I'm listening, going, oh, this has, with the patterns and the repetitive nature of it and people joining in,
yeah,
it has kind of that feel. And there was even another tune I'd listened while in the Amqui sessions where it almost got like a Chinese kind of sound. And I'm going, oh, that sounds kind of like this other things, but it kind of comes and goes. And then the Swedish influence, which I have absolutely no background in that particular area of world music, which is why it's also, again, more than happy to listen to it, because it's kind of cool and see what they do differently,
Yeah, but as we speak about it, it comes from liking fiddle tunes.
Gotcha.
Wesson's tunes are fiddle tunes. Nyckelharpa tunes, it's tuned like a fiddle, depending on which nyckelharpa he plays, but you can play them very well on a fiddle. Circular forms, 2-part, 3-part, 4-part tunes that you follow the melody and you play along, or maybe you pass the melody off to somebody else, but it keeps on returning.
Exactly.
Usually, these things don't have bridges.
Very, very cool. Well, and with Hawktail, you guys released Formations.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about, again, is that your most recent record release, or?
Yeah, that's the most recent. That's from January of this year.
Okay.
And the previous record we made like 3 times in totality, like the whole thing through, including editing. It was just a sort of an arduous process to kind of arrive at the quartet and get the arrangements to really sound correct. We had Dom in the band by the end of it, and we released the record, and we played a bunch of shows on it, then got all these other ideas, like, oh, well, now that we have Dom, we can do all this other stuff. So at first we were going to make a quick and dirty covers record of some things that we've been playing live that we had just pulled out casually, like as if we were jamming, but then we played it on stage. We would do that just to kind of inject our set with something more casual, and it was good for us and good for the set. And we thought maybe we should make a record of that. But as we got together to prepare that, there were these other ideas that just kind of took precedent. And it was like, well, we could record those, but this thing is really cool, and I've never heard anything like it. We have to expand on that. And so we ended up, it's almost entirely original. There's one cover, one Wesson tune on it. It happened pretty fast. I think we probably had 10 writing sessions as a band. I did a lot of writing outside of those group sessions and met with just Jordan a couple times and just Brittany and stuff. But overall, it was lightning fast. But that comes off of the experience of the new band and the touring that we had gotten to do. So that's what happened.
I hear you. Well, and one of the big challenges for upright players is getting your sound to a soundboard. And so it's probably a good time to talk about how you're getting your sound. Tell us a little bit about your gear. What are you playing?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that my head is in the acoustic realm. I spend all my time working on music acoustically. in a room. I rarely even use the microphone. I usually just play in a room, and that's how I came up as a classical musician. Over the years of recording, I've gotten some awareness of the things that make my sound on any particular record what it is, but mainly what I come to it with is my acoustic contribution. And it's a collaboration with an engineer for me. It depends, but that's the first thing I'll say is mostly I'm like an acoustic player. But in the studio, I mean, Dave Cinco has been the engineer for the Hawktail and both Hawktail records and the Jordan Tice Trio record. He's been the engineer for all of those. And he's the live engineer for Punch Brothers, my other band. And so he's very familiar with me and what I'm going for musically and as a bass player. And he also has the experience of recording my hero Edgar like so many times. Uncommon Ritual, Short Trip Home, some of my favorite records of all time were recorded by him. So it's pretty nice for me that I get to have access to him. And he just, whatever we want to do, he's like, let's do it, So it's great for me.
Gotcha.
So a lot of credit goes to that man, Dave Cinco.
But now your instrument, because your instrument is the source of your sound. Tell us about your bass itself.
For most of my career so far, I've been playing a bass made by a guy named Daniel Hatches, and that's a very, very fine modern instrument. Craftsmanship that's unsurpassed in the bass realm, at least. As of recently, I generally have always played in this solo tuning that I got from Edgar Meyer, which is the top 3 strings are a whole step high, and the bottom string is an orchestral string. So the tuning from the bottom to the top is E, B, E, A. It's a tone thing. It's not about the pitches, really. It's about the sound of those strings and the way they sound when you bow them and the clarity that they bring. In general, I've been trying to find a voice that can carry through the ensembles I play in. So I can carry a melody or just pierce through when I want to. That's kind of why I've used that tuning, besides the fact that a lot of the time the sound I hear in my head that I'm going for is like Edgar's. But recently I put standard tuning strings on the Hatches. I'm really liking that for Punch Brothers, sort of because of the music that we've gotten into. It's become more about like lush sounds, and it's hard to totally describe. I like the way it supports three voices, like sung voices, and the sheer number of people in the band is 5 in that group. So it's more people, 3 voices, a lot of times 3-part harmony, and so the standard tuning and the sound is nice. But for Hawktail, it's an instrumental band. It's a quartet, and the music is really built around making it so that each instrument can be the lead voice at equal amounts, especially as time has gone on, like on the new record formations, trying to give more balance to the ensemble. So everybody gets the spotlight the same amount of time. And so I play in my Edgar tuning in that band. And the bass that I like to play in that tuning more than any other bass that I've tried yet is a Shen SB-180, which is a fairly affordable instrument. It's I guess you call it a factory instrument. I hesitate to speak too much about that. I don't really know what they would say about it, but it's a plywood back and sides. It records surprisingly well. And the fact that it has plywood back and sides, maybe it doesn't feed back quite as fast when we're playing really loud, which doesn't happen that much anyway, but it does. It just has a tone that I really like. It allows me to play in the middle range of the bass with the bow, and it sounds like it belongs there. It doesn't sound like it's a big, deep instrument that is trying to play high. It sounds like, oh, that's the range that this bass sings in. And so that's why I'm playing that bass, and I'm enjoying it. I'm still looking around, but that's what I'm playing with right now.
Got you. Now, is that the one with the low C extension?
They both have low C extensions. That's kind of that's a thing that's fairly. I mean, your viewers probably know that the low C extensions are fairly common, especially in the orchestral realm.
Yes.
And in America. In Europe, I think maybe it has changed, but there was a tendency that people would play a 5-string bass instead of having extension.
Exactly.
But since I first got an extension when I went to school and I borrowed a bass that had an extension on it, I've always just loved having one. It really opens some possibilities for the instrument in terms of, well, you can have a low note that you don't need your left hand for that is a different pitch. Mm-hmm. So if you're playing an E flat, you can open up the E flat closer and then you can have an E flat string, and then you can be playing up high and then drop the bomb on E flat and you don't have to move your hand, stuff like that. Or you can, in a more subtle way, you can change the way the instrument responds in different keys by changing the extension, because you're changing the sympathetic vibrations of the instrument. And a lot of times I actually like to tune the extension, or I wouldn't say tune, but have the levers closed in a way that is discordant with the key I'm in, because I don't like the sympathetic vibrations. It kind of diffuses the sound of the bass, which I'm generally trying to get more focused, not more diffuse.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it's always fascinating with upright players particularly. There are so many of those nuances that affect your sound. I remember reading a book by this luthier. He was in his 90s, and he had pretty much spent most of his life working on getting Ron Carter's sound to its optimal state. And he would do things like change the wood that the peg was made out of. And so he was constantly the wheels were turning, and he'd contact Ron and said, "Hey, Ron, I need your bass for a couple of days. I think I can make it sound better this way, or I've got this idea." And it was the little bitty changes, little bitty tweaks, little things, and Ron would get it back like, "Okay, yeah, this is nicer. I like this better." And it was kind of this ongoing thing. But the guy kind of never quit a whole lifetime. He was older than dirt, and just was keep on kind of honing in. It was
the luthier.
The luthier was just kind of working at it, going, "Okay, if I can get it just that smidge better, that I'll be really happy with that." Now, do you have you wired your instrument to amplify any onboard stuff? Sure,
yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of what I do. I started out by saying that I'm primarily an acoustic player, and it's in a group of bass players, it wouldn't be uncommon that I would know the least about that stuff. Yeah. I've tried a lot of pickups, and I actually use all kinds of them for different purposes. I've been really enjoying on my standard tuning bass using a BP 100 like in the studio, which is a Fishman BP 100, that is a pretty classic pickup that was used a lot and still is, but maybe more prevalent in I don't know what era, 80s or 90s or something, I'm not sure. But it just has it imparts a specific thing. It just gets so much finger and so much like definition and pitch out of it. And it also kind of, depending on how tight you have it on the bridge, it'll dampen the sound of the instrument, which, maybe is good in a smaller space. I'm not sure. Just maybe simplifies it a little bit, which can be good for recording maybe. Mm-hmm. So I use different things for different reasons, but primarily for my live rig, I'm using a Fishman full circle on my Shen, and sometimes on the Hatches too. And sometimes on the Hatches I use a bridge that has a Ithaca strings pickup, which is a piezo. I'm not sure how you even say that through the whole bridge installed. So it's a more invasive thing to put it on there, but it's a really nice pickup. I like it a lot, but I also like the Fishman full circle. And bridge adjusters are something that upright players differ in opinion on. Like some people don't even like to use them. They like to use a solid wood bridge, and maybe they have a removable neck. I have a removable neck on mine, but it's a single bolt on top. That's becoming a very common way to have a removable neck upright. But some people put a system where you adjust it with a wrench through the heel of the bass, and then you can adjust the height of the strings that way instead of needing a removable bridge. But I still like having a removable bridge, and even if I had a removable neck system that had an adjustable overstand, I guess is what you would call it.
Sure.
Even if I had that, I would still want the bridge adjusters because I use them in the middle of a show. When I go from a dressing room that's one environment out to the stage, sometimes the environment is so different that by the second or third song, my bass is, if it's really humid out there, my bass is sharp. And I don't have much time between songs to fix it, but what I can do is mute on my pedal board, I use a Grace Felix preamp these days, which is a very clear, really amazing preamp for live sound. I mean, it kind of transforms a lot of pickups into sounding so much more. It's just really open and clear to my ear. I'll mute it there so that I don't make a big sound in the hall, and I'll crank the adjusters down and fix the tuning of all my strings at once, and it'll get really close to in tune, and it'll be real fast. And then you're also fixing the string height, and you restore it to what you want. And so I like having those bridge adjusters anyway, and so the full circle is a pretty non-invasive good solution for me. I like it.
Very nice. Do you have a preference in strings?
Absolutely. I keep on experimenting and trying different strings when they come out, or when somebody suggests one to me. I've got a whole bag of strings at this point. Like, I save them, and I make sure I have them organized so I can always refer back to them. And every once in a while I think, it'd be great if this thing was a little brighter. I'll just try throwing this on, and I throw it on. Like you say, people are always tweaking their stuff. I mean, some people don't. There are some musicians I know who they have something that works and they just don't touch it. They just roll with it. And if it's not sounding right, they might just kind of be like, oh, I don't like it. It doesn't sound right. And then they just put it away, and then they come back in a week. You know, I tweak with it, and the strings I haven't changed. It's the same strings that Edgar uses. It's solo, Presto permanent A, first string, solo Presto permanent E, second string, Spyrocore solo third string B, and a long C Spyrocore, long C with a C extension, which is actually a bigger gauge than a medium gauge E string, even though they're both medium gauge. The long C is a little bit thicker because it accommodates the long. And I like that sound. I like the sound of that string. I've tried the light gauges on everything. When I'm really playing the way I want to play, I haven't found anything I like as much as that.
Nice. Well, and as we're talking, we're deep in the pandemic, and so a lot of future plans have certainly been put on hold by everybody, pretty much. And I did see that you guys have tentative tour dates for 2021. What's in the future for Hawktail?
Well, I'm not really sure. We're gonna play an online show here pretty soon, and we have some optimistic shows on the books, but we'll see if they get kicked down the road as they have been once or twice before. In the meantime, I'm practicing a lot, writing, just continuing my studies. I have an office that I love, and I analyze the music that is moving me, try and find out why I love it, and what I can steal from it, and try and practice on a very regular basis, work things up. I think I'll do a online stream of the entire first cello suite, Bach's first cello suite here pretty soon, because I've been playing that through this year by myself. It's great music to play by yourself. It's just lovely, lovely music. I can't can't believe it. How nice it is. It doesn't get old.
And where is the best place? I know for the band, padiddlerecords.com.
Yeah.
Comes up.
Yeah, that's our record label. It's really just, at this moment, it's the record label that I formed. And it's the home for the records that I've made and the records, and a couple of records that I've either played on, like Wes Corbett, the banjo player's record, is coming out in December. And Jordan Tice, who's in Hawktail, his solo record just came out on there. So it's family music stuff that is, I guess it's the people that are that I work with in an aesthetic that speaks to me at this point. We'll see where it goes from there.
Gotcha. Well, and that's the best place to look for your stuff as well, right? Because that's...
Yeah, yep. I don't have my own record out yet, but I'm working on it.
Gotcha. And then on social media, pretty much at Hawktail Music should do the trick.
Yep. For social media, yeah, like Instagram,
Facebook.
Probably Instagram and Facebook and stuff, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Paul, we appreciate you taking time to chat with us and spending a little time in your backyard, gorgeous weather. Yeah. Folks, you've seen him here, Paul Kowert on Bass Musician Magazine.
Thank you very much, Raul.
Wow.